So, millions of people woke up this morning, right?
Yeah.
And they, sat on a cushion, maybe crossed their legs, and they meditated, or maybe they unrolled a yoga mat, or just spent some time quietly trying to like center their
Yeah,
minds.
it's a huge part of so many people's daily routines.
Totally. But what if almost 100% of them are entirely wasting their time?
I mean, it is a really jarring thought
Hmm.
because we generally operate under this assumption that, if a practice has survived for 1,000 years, it just must have some inherent validity.
Yeah, like we trust the sheer momentum of history, right?
Exactly. We assume millions of people across centuries can't all be wrong.
Well, today's deep dive is going to aggressively challenge that trust.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. We are pulling apart a single, highly provocative essay, and it's titled Self-Improvement and Self-Cultivation is a Science.
Right.
It was written in January 2022 by an author named Zhuai Feng. And the core argument here, it's not just some gentle critique of, like, modern wellness culture.
No, not at all. It goes
No.
way deeper than that.
Yeah, the author makes this massive, sweeping claim that the vast majority of human self-improvement fails completely. And why? Because it relies on mysticism and, like, vague philosophy rather than strict scientific methodology.
Right. He's basically demanding that we look at our spiritual and philosophical pursuits through this cold, unforgiving lens of a laboratory.
Which is intense. So in this deep dive, we're going to examine why exactly he believes these popular methods are just unscientific illusions.
Right.
And then we'll dissect the specific roadmap he actually proposes to replace them.
It's a fascinating text.
Yeah.
And to really understand his perspective, we have to look at what he calls the metaphysics trap.
Okay, the metaphysics trap. Tell me about that.
Well, he starts with this massive historical context. He points to the sweeping history of the Japanese nation and notes that for centuries, countless people have sought immortality through Taoist alchemy,
Right.
or they tried to achieve Buddhahood, or practiced intense Qigong to obtain, like, supernatural abilities.
Right, we're talking about emperors pouring absolute fortunes into finding elixirs of life, right? And generations of sages basically dedicating their entire earthly existence to mastering the flow of energy.
Exactly. But the author asks this deeply pragmatic question. Out of all those millions of seekers across thousands of years,
Yeah.
how many actually succeeded? How many became immortals or Buddhas? And his conclusion is that the success rate is virtually zero.
Wow. Literally zero.
Basically, yeah. He says those who actually achieve their stated cosmic goals are just a drop in the bucket.
Okay, so he's looking at this abysmal success rate, and he blames it on, like, a fundamental categorization error, right? Like, seekers have historically treated self-cultivation as metaphysics.
Yeah.
Something mystical, ethereal, and safely beyond the reach of actual measurement.
Right. And he argues it absolutely must be treated as a hard science.
And he defines his terms pretty clearly here,
Yeah,
right?
it does. He says that true science relies on three non-negotiable elements: laws, verification, and methods.
Laws, verification, and methods. Okay.
Yeah. And he applies those three elements with just absolute rigidity.
Right.
First, there's the necessity of a definite purpose. If you don't know exactly what you are trying to achieve, you are, in his words, like a leaf blown by the autumn wind in the wilderness.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you essentially have no agency. Then second, once you define that purpose, you need an underlying law to reach it, like a roadmap.
A roadmap. Got it.
And third, and this is really the linchpin of his entire worldview, you must strictly verify that this roadmap works, either on yourself or on others.
Okay, so it's like trying to bake a complex cake using abstract poetry instead of a recipe with exact measurements and oven temperatures, right?
Yeah.
Or it's like a pharmaceutical company releasing a brand new heart medication to the public.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Right. And when the FDA inevitably asks to see their double-blind clinical trial data, the company's CEO just hands them a beautifully written haiku about how peaceful the heart feels.
Exactly. You'd shut the company down immediately.
You would. You need empirical laws, you need a method, and you need verifiable results. But and let me just push back here for a second.
Yeah.
Isn't the whole point of spirituality that it is supposed to be unquantifiable? Like, that's what makes it spiritual?
Yeah.
We are talking about the human soul, consciousness, inner peace. We're not talking about a chemistry set.
Well, what's fascinating here is that the author firmly rejects that notion,
Yeah.
that defense you just gave. That is the traditional shield used to protect spiritual practices from criticism.
Okay, and he just shatters that shield.
Completely shatters it. He argues that if a roadmap cannot be verified as correct and effective in reality, then the so-called law is simply false. Period.
Wow. He refuses to give spirituality a free pass.
He really does. If a practice is real, it must produce verifiable systemic results. If it doesn't, you aren't cultivating yourself. He says you are just wandering blindly in a fog of your own making.
Okay, so taking that rigid demand for verification, the author then, he turns his sights on the heavyweights of history, right?
He does. Because if every roadmap has to pass this test of empirical verification, he decides to audit the most famous spiritual traditions.
Right, he looks at theories of Chinese immortality and Buddhism and basically declares that they lack a scientific basis, they lack laws, and they lack evidence.
Yeah. And, a listener deeply immersed in these traditions might instinctively respond with that classic defense, right?
The all roads lead to Rome thing.
Exactly. Or the Buddhist idea that there are 84,000 ways to enlightenment. It's this comforting idea that spiritual truth is a mountain and everyone just takes a different path up to the same peak.
Right, but he completely dismantles that defense.
Oh, totally.
He points out the mathematical reality that unverified paths do not magically converge on the truth. Like if you don't verify your coordinates, taking an unverified path might lead you a million miles away from your objective.
Yeah, or it could actually actively regress your progress. And he grounds this whole critique in a really famous story about Shakyamuni Buddha.
Oh, right, this is the flower story.
Yes. So according to Buddhist tradition, the Buddha spent 49 years teaching the Dharma, his spiritual doctrines, to his followers.
Right.
But toward the end of his life, he reached this profound realization. He realized the ultimate truth of the universe could not actually be contained or expressed in human language.
Okay.
So during a famous gathering, instead of giving a sermon, he simply held up a flower and smiled. And only one disciple understood the silent message.
Wow.
Yeah. And this moment of silent transmission created the foundation of Zen, which is often described as avoiding reliance on written words and instead relying on transmission from heart to heart.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because, I've always found that story incredibly beautiful.
It is a beautiful story.
Right. And millions of people today find profound peace in the concepts of Zen precisely because it intentionally bypasses our obsessive logical brains. So wait, millions of people find peace in this. Isn't that transmission from heart to heart a brilliant feature of the system rather than a bug?
Well, from the author's analytical perspective, holding up that flower was the exact moment the tradition abandoned any pretense of scientific validity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he looks at that story and asks, what is Zen? What is the heart? How do you measure a transmission between two silent minds?
You can't.
Exactly. You cannot give those concepts a scientific definition, and you certainly cannot quantify them. And to him, if you cannot define or quantify the mechanism of change, it becomes utterly useless for systemic, reliable self-improvement across a broad population.
So it reduces enlightenment to like a random, unreplicable accident.
That's his argument, yes.
So he invalidates the entire premise of the teaching just because it refuses to be pinned down on a spreadsheet. But the author doesn't just confine this critique to, monks in isolated monasteries, does he?
No, the scope of his essay expands significantly here.
Right. He argues that this comfort with vagueness, like this anti-scientific virus, almost has actually infected broader cultural philosophy and even modern politics.
It's a huge leap, but he takes aim at Wang Yangming.
Oh, who's a massive figure, right?
One of the most influential figures in Chinese philosophy, famous for his philosophy of mind. The author specifically cites Wang Yangming's core concepts, like the idea that mind is principle, or the unity of inner knowledge and action, and the concept of innate knowledge.
Okay, so to explain that simply for a second, Wang Yangming's philosophy suggests that moral truth and understanding aren't things you learn from outside rules, they are born within you. It's like an innate knowledge you just have to uncover.
Right.
But the author looks at these towering philosophical concepts and basically asks his defining question. Where is the science?
Exactly. How do you possibly quantify my innate knowledge versus your innate knowledge?
Right. He dismisses it all as totally ambiguous wordplay. And then, and this is wild, he takes this fascinating leap, applying this exact same demand for scientific rigor to the slogans used by modern governments.
Yes. He specifically calls out popular contemporary political phrases, things like the China dream and the goal of realizing the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation.
Okay, wait. Real quick, though, before we unpack his breakdown of those slogans, we need to pause and make something explicitly clear to you, our listener.
Yes, very important point here.
As your hosts, we are completely impartial here. Like, we are not taking a side. We are not endorsing the author's political viewpoints at all.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And we aren't criticizing these national slogans ourselves either.
Right, exactly. We are solely reporting on the text's argument. We're just demonstrating how the author applies his rigid demand for scientific methodology to the realm of political language.
Exactly. Our focus remains strictly on the mechanics of his logic.
Good. Okay, let's get back to it.
So he applies the exact same test to political slogans that he applied to Zen Buddhism. And he concludes that these phrases completely lack a scientific spirit.
He calls them impractical connotations, right? Or a bowl of ecstasy soup.
A bowl of ecstasy soup. His fundamental issue is the lack of defined parameters. He rhetorically asks the reader what exactly is being rejuvenated.
And he goes through this rapid-fire, like almost theatrical list of historical elements to highlight the absurdity of an undefined goal.
Oh, it's quite a list.
Yeah, he asks, are we rejuvenating men wearing braids? Are we rejuvenating the practice of women binding their feet?
Right.
Are we bringing back chastity archways and the doctrine of male superiority? He even asks if rejuvenation means reverting to the theory of yin and yang, or fortune-telling, divination, and feng shui,
Yeah.
or perhaps bringing back the brutal tyranny of King Qin.
And, the drama of that list serves a very specific logical purpose for him.
Oh, yes.
He is demonstrating that without explicit verifiable connotations, a phrase like rejuvenation is just an empty vessel.
Oh, I see.
If a leader doesn't define precisely what is being rejuvenated and doesn't provide a verifiable step-by-step method for achieving it, then it basically ceases to be a scientific plan for national progress. It is merely emotional manipulation.
So what does this all mean? Like, if I were to translate this into a modern corporate environment, it's like a CEO aggressively demanding that the entire company achieve total synergy by the end of the fiscal year.
Right.
But they outright refuse to provide a single key performance indicator, no revenue targets, and no actual business strategy.
Exactly. The employees would just be running around the office trying to look busy, completely devoid of any metric for success.
Yeah.
Whether it's a philosopher shaping a morality of a culture or a politician rallying the energy of a nation, the author just abhors vague concepts. He believes they operate as smoke screens.
Manipulating human emotions while offering zero verified methods for actual advancement.
Yes, he thinks they distract us from the hard, quantifiable work of progress.
Wow. Okay, so if broad philosophical frameworks are too vague and national goals are too ambiguous, what about the highly specific physical habits that millions of people engage in daily?
You mean the tangible exercises?
Yeah, the modern spiritual toolkit. Well, he throws all of those out, too.
Every single one.
Every single one. He explicitly claims that almost 100% of popular cultivation methods have absolutely zero scientific content.
And he provides a really detailed catalog of the practices he considers completely useless.
Okay, let's go through it.
Yeah.
Because he targets sitting cross-legged. He targets fasting, which he refers to as an idia.
Right.
He goes after yoga, key training, breathing exercises. He specifically calls out traditional Chinese medicine concepts too, like attempting to open the governor and conception vessels.
And for those unfamiliar with that, in traditional acupuncture, these are considered the primary energy pathways running up the back and down the front of the human body.
Right. Thank you. And he dismisses all of it. He dismisses kowtowing, burning incense, chanting mantras, turning prayer wheels,
Yeah.
vipassana, which is mindfulness and meditation. He lumps all of these together, labeling them senseless acts and nonsense talk.
He really holds nothing back.
He even suggests they operate primarily as a grift for people to make a living, offering a multitude of disadvantages and very few benefits.
It is a breathtakingly sweeping dismissal. I mean, he is looking at practices that form the daily foundational habits of billions of people globally, and he's declaring them completely bankrupt of scientific value.
I have to admit, reading the specific section, I experienced genuine shock.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I understand dismissing the vagueness of someone staring at a wall hoping for enlightenment, but lumping mindfulness and yoga in with, like, burning incense? Hold on. Modern Western science actually does study and quantify the health benefits of meditation.
That's a very fair point.
We have functional MRI scans showing literal physical changes in the amygdala, reducing the brain's fear response. We track heart rate variability. We have peer-reviewed clinical trials demonstrating significant stress reduction.
Absolutely. The data's there.
Right. Many of our listeners probably have apps like Calm or Headspace on their phones right now to track their mindfulness streaks. So how does the author justify ignoring this actual empirical science?
Well, to understand why he ignores those clinical studies, we have to look at how he defines the ultimate overarching goal of human existence.
Okay.
Yes, a clinical trial can prove that 20 minutes of mindfulness lowers your blood pressure. He might even concede that. But for this author, lowering your blood pressure is not the ultimate purpose of self-cultivation.
Ah, I see.
He believes that practitioners of these habits mistake a minor physiological reaction for actual existential progress.
Okay, so if these isolated exercises just make you feel a little calmer for an hour, but do not serve the ultimate purpose of what he calls sublimating life,
Yeah.
then you are just playing with aesthetic concepts.
Exactly. He's arguing that people fall in love with the aesthetic of spirituality rather
Yeah.
than the mechanics of growth.
They buy the expensive yoga pants, they light the sage, they sit cross-legged to achieve a temporary dopamine hit of relaxation,
Right?
and they convince themselves they are doing deep spiritual work. But because they lack a scientifically verified roadmap to ultimate liberation, they are just sweating on a spiritual treadmill.
That's a great way to put it. You can run on a treadmill for 50 years, burn a lot of calories, and never actually travel an inch from where you started.
Wow.
The author argues that after spending a lifetime meticulously practicing these unscientific methods, you will eventually find yourself standing in the exact same existential place.
Okay, but listen, you cannot spend an entire essay violently tearing down everyone else's roadmap, right? Like dismantling Zen, yoga, and thousands of years of philosophy without eventually offering your own vehicle for progress.
You have to provide an alternative.
Right. If those traditions are just treadmills, what is his actual destination? And what is his scientific blueprint for getting us there?
Well, he does attempt to define his parameters. He states that there is only one true purpose to self-improvement and self-cultivation:
Okay, what is it?
to make life happy, joyous, free, and blessed, and to let life, which, by the way, he capitalizes in the text, let life continue to sublimate.
Sublimate, meaning like to elevate something to a purer, higher, or more refined state. Okay, so the destination is a joyous, free life that is in a constant state of elevation. What are the specific scientific methods he provides to achieve this?
He lays out 3 distinct steps.
Okay.
First, to prepay your debts and end secular ties. Second, to make contributions to accumulate merit. And third, to perfect the non-material structure of life.
Wait a second.
And he insists that these 3 methods, in stark contrast to the ones he just spent pages criticizing, have clear connotations and extensions. He demands that they must be constantly verified and advanced in a solid manner, strictly in accordance with scientific methods.
Okay, I need to stop and look closely at this list.
Go ahead.
Perfecting the non-material structure of life, accumulating merit, ending secular ties.
Yep.
How in the world are those concepts any more quantifiable or scientific than Wang Yang-ming's innate knowledge or the Buddha's Zen?
It's a glaring question, isn't it?
I mean, if I walk into a university laboratory and ask a physicist to measure my accumulated merit, they are going to look at me like I have lost my mind. You cannot put the non-material structure of life under a microscope.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Mm-hmm.
this brings us to the profound aha moment of the entire text. It's the central paradox of the author's argument.
That's a paradox, yeah.
He spends the vast majority of the essay aggressively demanding rigid clinical scientific verification. He eviscerates other belief systems for relying on vague, unmeasurable ideas.
Right.
Yet the moment he presents his own proposed methods, he relies entirely on highly metaphysical concepts. He fails to provide the very formulas and empirical metrics he demanded from absolutely everyone else.
Oh, that is so fascinating. He's basically co-opting the vocabulary of science to legitimize his own abstract poetry.
Precisely.
Words like structure and verification and laws are just being used to dress up deeply spiritual ideas in a lab coat.
It highlights a really fascinating cultural shift. In the modern era, science has essentially become a new religious buzzword.
Right. It is a hollow stamp of unquestionable authority.
Yes. We are so culturally desperate for certainty, so anxious for a guaranteed return on our investment of time and spiritual energy, that gurus and philosophers try to force the rigid language of physics onto the sprawling, unquantifiable landscape of the human soul.
Wow. We've covered an immense amount of ground today.
We really have.
We explored this uncompromising essay that demands we strip the comforting mysticism out of self-improvement. The author warned us that without a verified roadmap, without treating our growth like a rigorous science, we are just leaves blowing in the autumn wind, performing senseless aesthetic rituals.
Right, he tore down Zen, dismantled ancient philosophy, and dismissed modern yoga.
All of it, urging us instead to focus on sublimating life through his specific, albeit deeply paradoxical methods.
It really forces a necessary, slightly uncomfortable reflection on the habits we build our lives around.
Yeah, so to you listening, look at your own goals. Think about the meditation app on your phone, or the philosophical mantras you repeat, or the wellness routines you follow. Are you blindly following those rituals just because they are culturally popular?
That's a question worth asking.
Are you mistaking the soothing feeling of the ritual for actual verifiable progress toward a life of genuine freedom? Are you running on the spiritual treadmill?
It is crucial to constantly audit and verify our own practices, ensuring they actually serve our ultimate objectives.
Absolutely. And I want to leave you with one final provocative thought that builds on the strange paradox we uncovered today.
Okay, let's hear it.
The author insists that true self-improvement is a hard science that requires perfecting the non-material structure of life and tracking our accumulated merit.
Right.
In our hyper-quantified modern world, what would an actual scientifically rigorous measuring stick for that kind of spiritual sublimation even look like?
Oh, that's interesting.
Imagine the wearable technology we'll have in 10 years. Could we eventually strap a smartwatch to our wrists that, instead of pinging us about our resting heart rate, actively tracks the severing of our secular ties?
That is a wild image.
Imagine a device that alerts you when your accumulated merit is running dangerously low for the day. Would that finally satisfy the human demand for a fully scientific spirituality? Or would quantifying the soul be the ultimate modern dystopia?
That is certainly something to ponder the next time you sit quietly and close your eyes.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, keep verifying your roadmaps, and never stop questioning your assumptions.